Before I moved back into the house I co-own with my ex, my son lived here with my ex full-time, while I lived back in my birth country. I would fly to see him at least once a month, and sometimes my ex would bring him to me too. It wasn't an ideal setup, but I didn't have the option of having my son live with me full-time. My son got really sick 3 months ago. I stayed with him until he was better. During that time, my son repeatedly asked me if I was going to leave him again, and told me he didn't like it when I left him. It broke my heart every time he would say things like that, and I was already finding it hard being away from him most of the time. I asked my ex if he would consider letting our son live with me full-time, but he wouldn't even discuss it. All he would say was that it would never happen. The day before I was scheduled to go back home, I tried bringing it up to my ex again, but again, he shot the conversation down. I was upset, and I told him I was moving back and I wouldn't be away from my son anymore. A week and a half later, I moved back here and back into the house. I never asked my ex if he was okay with me moving back in. I just did it. Sometimes my ex seems amused by me having moved back, and other times he seems annoyed by it. Besides us, my mother-in-law and my ex's girlfriend also live here. My mother-in-law feels like I made the right decision for my son, whereas my ex's girlfriend is furious. She wants me out, and I know she's been trying to get my ex to force me to leave. She told me I was making her uncomfortable in her own home, and that I was insane for thinking I could just move back in after all this time. Yesterday, she told me they were going to have me evicted, which I already know she can't do. Am I the a-hole? If you co-own the home, then your opinion also matters here. It's your house too. Although this hardly seems like a sustainable long-term solution, perhaps sell the house and go about your own ways living in separate homes. Not the a-hole. Honestly, time for all of you to put on your grown-up pants, sell the house, find your own places that you don't co-own, and work out a custody agreement for the benefit of your son. Edit. Everyone sucks here, because the tension in the house is going to affect your son. Everyone sucks here. If you co-own the house, you do have a right to live there. But is it right, is the question. You left for a long time, and while just moving back in seems right for you, your ex and others don't agree, and really don't want you in their space all the time. This hostility is not going to be good for your son. Tell your ex that they need to buy you out of your part of the property and settle nearby in your own place. Thank you. Just because she may be legally allowed to move back in, that doesn't make her an a-hole. She left their family home. He moved on and has a new girlfriend. Everyone sucks here because they should have worked this out when she first left. Co-owning this home together was not a good idea for the long term if they are no longer together. He should have bought out her share, or they should have sold it and split the money long before this became an issue. I mean, what was he supposed to do? Just sit around pining for her, waiting and hoping she would come back? No, he moved on with his life, and now she shows back up and imposes herself on everyone in the house. Not the a-hole for a couple of reasons. You co-own the house, so you're a legal owner, so truthfully, you don't need your ex's permission to live there. It's in the best interest of your son. He wants and needs you to be around. Does it have to be the same house? No, but I wouldn't move out until you had signed paperwork and 50% of the equity. Your ex's girlfriend is the one with the problem, a non-owner resident of the house. She cannot evict you because you have a legal right to the house, and she does not. Your ex is most likely annoyed with you because girlfriend hates the situation. Your ex is amused or annoyed, but not once in the post did you state he asked you to move out. If he did, I would say yes, move out, once you are off the house title and with 50% of the equity. I am a, now 35, lesbian who always wanted kids. I had a, now 38, gay male best friend. We got married in the aughts for financial reasons before gay marriage was legal, USA. We wanted to go into real estate together and had all sorts of dreams that people in their early 20s often do. When I was ready for a baby, I was financially stable. He was in grad school. He said he wanted to be the donor. I had other options, but he insisted. I offered to divorce first so he wouldn't need to be on the birth certificate, but he declined, insisting it would all work out. We talked about it, and he planned on being more like a cool uncle to the kid, and I was good with single parenting. He said once he was graduated and gainfully employed, he'd be happy to help financially with what he could afford, plus pay for baby's college. I said I wouldn't ask for official child support. In agreement, I went out and bought a turkey baster. He was involved with the pregnancy, present for the birth, signed the birth certificate, and told me he decided he wanted my son to call him Dad. Then, within weeks, he iced me out, stopped being my friend, and never spent any time with the kid. He acted like we didn't exist. He graduated and got a job, but never offered money, and I didn't ask. Then, when my kid was 3, I suffered a TBI. It was really bad. I couldn't work, and the workplace injury insurance only covered 60% of my pay. I couldn't apply for welfare beyond food stamps and Medicaid because they'd go after him for child support, which I'd agreed not to do. I downsized, cut corners, took out loans. Eventually, I moved to where cost of living was lower, which cut me off from my support systems. When he said he wanted a divorce, I agreed. Only you can't divorce your wife, ask for no custody or visitation with your child, and not pay child support. Like, legally, they don't let you do that even if the divorce is uncontested. He proposed he pay child support, and I just pay it right back to him. At that point, I was drowning in debt, sick, with a 7-year-old who needed more than I could give. I said if he paid court-ordered child support, I wasn't giving it back. At this point, he made close to 6 figures, and I was surviving on food stamps and Social Security disability, $12K a year. He threw a massive fit over it, accusing me of using him for money. So I let the courts decide the amount, and they made him pay. I keep the money. Kid is 11 now, and still never sees or talks to his dad, donor. I've always left the door open, but he was never interested without pressure from family or our mutual friends. I'm getting better, finally, but I'm still relying on disability. Why I think I might be the a-hole. I did break my part of our agreement. Forcing his hand on the money may have made him feel less inclined to get to know my son. And they have a ton of interests in common. If I hadn't needed the money, I would never have asked for it, kept it. Not the a-hole. He signed the birth certificate, promised to help out financially, said he wanted to be a dad, then ghosted you both. You only promised not to get court-ordered child support based on the promises he never kept. Contracts have to be fulfilled on both sides. Get the child support. Keep it all. Your child needs it. Everyone sucks here for getting into this ambiguous situation in the first place. Being a donor is fine, and being a dad is fine. But if you get the woman you're married to pregnant, you're legally the dad, which set up this whole mess of a situation. This is why it's important to have a clear written donor agreement when you use a known donor, who definitely should not be your husband. Everyone sucks here. You're the one who decided you wanted to parent on your own. It seems as though you've decided that your agreement is void because you're broke. I understand that there are forces outside your control at play here, but you were still on the hook for wanting and creating a child that you were supposed to be solely responsible for. I have a car that is 10 years old, but I don't drive that much. I have 3 nieces that are 16 through 20 years old. Amy is 16, Jan is 18, Brittany is 20. Jan and Brittany are sisters. Amy is their cousin. None of them have their license, but Amy and Jan are in the process. Brittany has been driving with an expired permit for at least 2 years. Last summer, Jan and Brittany started saving for their own car and asked if I would be willing to sell them my car for a deal. My car is worth $7K, and the price we agreed to was $3K. They intended on sharing it. I said I would sell my car to them under the condition they both give me $1.5K. To be honest, I didn't care about the money or need it, but I thought this would be a good way for them to learn how to save money. I also had the condition that Brittany get her license. Jan and Brittany are both terrible with money. They spend it the second they get it. There's always a reason. My favorite singer came out with new merch. This makeup palette is on sale. I need a new phone. You get the idea. I thought if they could both save up $1.5K, then they would have an emotional investment in the car and would take care of it and learn responsibility, which they are not learning at home, but that's a different story. Brittany called me on her own one day. She wanted to know if it would be alright if she gave me $2K for my car instead of both her and Jan giving me $1.5K. She said Jan was spending all her money and not saving. Brittany said she didn't want to lose the chance to get a nice car for cheap. I believed Brittany's story and agreed to the new deal. I know, that was dumb. I should have followed up with Jan. A while later, Jan stayed with my husband and I for a week. The car came up and I told her about my conversation with Brittany. Jan became very angry, but not at me. She was mad at Brittany. Jan showed me her account balance and she had in fact been saving. Brittany lied because she wanted the car to herself. I was angry. I don't like being lied to, and my trust in Brittany is gone. When we took Jan back home, I told everyone that I was going to keep the car. Jan understood and agreed with me, but Brittany was upset. I didn't care. I went home and never brought the car up again with that family. Last week, my other niece, Amy, called me and said she heard about the car drama and that it fell through. She asked me if she could buy it from me. She has $3,000 saved already and could buy it right now. I said yes. I fixed it up and bought accessories for the car as a surprise. She took possession of the car this week. Amy is thrilled. Brittany and her mom are pissed. They're under the impression that I was saving my car for Brittany and Jan. I never said anything about saving the car for them, and I'm not sure where they got that idea. Word got around, and now my in-laws are roasting me for favoring Amy. Edit. Jan hasn't wanted the car since last year. It's got bad juju. I'm helping her look for another one. I've bookmarked money for her future car purchase. Not the a-hole. I feel bad for Jan. It sounds like you made the right choice, though. Letting her buy it without Brittany would have led to problems at home. Sounds like her mom would have given it to Brittany anyway. Not the a-hole. Brittany shouldn't have lied, and if her mom is mad, she can always buy her a car. You were nice enough to sell her. Not the a-hole. Jan and Amy were honest and kept their end of the bargain. Brittany is the one who lied and messed everything up. Your in-laws should know the entire story behind why, if you haven't told them already. Her lying and, really, virtually theft of your car deserves public airing, and she should be punished. This is all on her. I do feel bad for Jan. Why is the person named Jan always the one who gets the short end of the stick? She did everything right, and she shouldn't be punished. Maybe you can find her another car and help her buy it and fix it up together. Not the a-hole. You had a deal with them and it fell through because of Brittany's actions. Amy just took advantage of an opportunity that they couldn't, so that's smart on her. Also amazing she was able to save the original amount on her own to match the price the other two would pay together, and not negotiate a cheaper price with you. You kept your end of the bargain at giving the car to the person who was able to save the money you asked for. I do feel bad for Jan, cause none of what happened is her fault. She's the only one who should be pissed. And at Brittany, not you. My husband and I both work full-time. He's very interested in saving as much as possible. But I feel that I have a debt to pay back to my parents. He feels paying off his student loans are more important. We never had much, but my father went to both of his jobs every day for the 18 years I was living at home. He never missed a day, for any reason. Sick, hurt, jury duty, he always showed up. He worked 80 hours a week to give me my future, and for that, I will forever be in his debt. He carried the weight of my world on his shoulders, and he never complained. And if he was here, he'd want me to take care of my mother. My mother suffers from severe anxiety, so she never worked, but she took care of us the best she could. She didn't need to work because my father didn't mind providing for her, but my father passed away due to persistent health issues. My mom cannot afford to pay her mortgage, but we can, and I don't think I'm being unreasonable by suggesting I put some of the money towards my mother's bills. He seems to think that I don't owe my parents anything, and I'm honestly really upset with him over how he spoke about my mother. Sure, she may not have been the one putting in the 80-plus hour work weeks, but that doesn't matter to me. She was still there. We're young, and my mom earned this. I don't think it's selfish to suggest that we put his future on hold, since that's super dramatic. He says we should pay off our debt before worrying about anyone else. And since I think most of my checks should go to my mom, he says I'm selfish. Am I an a-hole for choosing my mother's mortgage and bills over his student loans, like he says? Edits. All our money goes into one big pot, and it is distributed a certain way. A large portion goes towards paying off our, technically his, debt. I feel we should direct some of that towards my mom. And legally, any of his debt is my own since we're married. We have combined finances, but I make a majority, so splitting things wouldn't be fair or plausible. When we got married, my father was alive, and he didn't have these loans. And my mother has severe mental illness, which would make holding a job close to impossible, at any age. As for income, I make approximately $96K a year to his $52K. He wanted 60% to go to the loans, but we settled on 25%, just to clarify. Yes, the a-hole, and your priorities are dramatically misplaced. Like it or not, you and your husband's financial futures are thoroughly entangled, and his student loans are going to be a roadblock on a lot of things for you both. It sounds more like you, and if you have any siblings, need to have a hard conversation with your mom about helping her live within her means, not propping her up in an unattainable and unsustainable situation. It sounds like there is nothing your mother can do in the present situation to sustain herself. She needs to make changes. It's an unfair burden for you to put on yourself. And it's vital that you two sort this out. You are on different pages with money, and that is one of the leading catalysts for divorce. Your comments in the thread make you look worse. Response to your edits. We have combined finances, but I make a majority, so splitting things wouldn't be fair or plausible. It sounds like you do not understand how this marriage thing works. It doesn't matter who makes more. You are a unit. You're in it together, through thick and thin, whatever life throws at you. I can't even describe the crap that my wife and I have gone through over the years, and we're stronger for it, because we're a unit and we share literally everything. You're talking about this like it's some sort of business arrangement, and a really crappy one at that. To be clear, you're not the a-hole because you want to help your mom. Your problem is that you are viewing things black and white, no discussion, no compromise. You double talk. You say, we combined finances in one breath, but then talk about fairness based on who makes more in the next. That doesn't work. You view your own point of view as more legitimate than your husband's and make value judgments about him in the comments by comparing him to your dad. You two need counseling, and you two as well as your mom need a financial planner. Based on your comments, yes, the a-hole. Your mom has savings and hasn't even asked for help. You are paying interest on student loans that you agreed to take on as a married couple. Your mom could sell her place and downsize to something more appropriate. You are expecting your husband to pay your mom's bills for the rest of her life. This isn't a temporary situation so she can get her head above water. You aren't willing to compromise in the slightest. You say you will divorce your husband if he doesn't agree to this. You need to put your own oxygen mask on before you help someone else. If you have marital debt, that should come before you volunteering to pay your mom's way. This absolutely should have been something you discussed before you got married, since you feel so strongly about it. Yes, the a-hole, although I understand your loyalty. Your mother should sell her house and downgrade to a more financially suitable accommodation. Your husband never signed up to work for someone else's debt. He is entitled to look after himself and rid himself of debt, as that can affect your futures. If your father didn't have life insurance to help your mother out, then she should sell her house and get something smaller and use the profit from her house to pay off her new place entirely, which will lower her price of living.